Laura, you're muted. That doesn't happen very often.
Take two. I know I'm never muted even when I am. So, there's that. Anyway, hi everybody, welcome. I said welcome back, and I said welcome back because I know there are so many people who come week after week, and Janet and I are so appreciative of you for your interest and for your dedication to Cheese O'Clock. Something tells me that you have Cheese O'Clock pretty much every hour at home, whether or not Janet and I are part of it. So that's great. But to those of you who are new, thank you so much for joining. I hope that you have a great time. And while I'm thinking of it, we have 2 more weeks left of this series of Cheese O'Clock, which we'll tell you more about. But just briefly, next week we're doing a Vermont Masterclass, 4 amazing Vermont cheeses, all blue ribbon winners, just as today's are. And that's in conjunction with Argyle Winery. And then we skip a week, which is Thanksgiving. Hopefully you're not skipping cheese that week though. And then the next week, December 3rd, we have 4 states, 5 stars. And what that means is that we have cheeses from 4 states, but 2 of the cheeses are from the same cheese producer, and he insisted that we taste both of them side by side. Different names, similar cheeses, but not so similar. So we get 5 cheeses that week. Anyway, what is Cheese O'Clock for those of you who are new? It is cheese, and today it's with MacRostie Winery, which I'm very excited to be partnering with. And who am I? My name is Laura Werlin, and I am the author of several books on cheese and a speaker, and now a de facto virtual tasting host. So with that, I want to introduce my partner in crime, Janet Fletcher. Janet, take it away.
Thanks, Laura. Hi, everybody. I am Janet, and I'm the publisher of Planet Cheese, a weekly blog, also the author of Cheese and Wine and Cheese and Beer, which is a great passion of mine. But it's all wine today with MacRostie. And we have MacRostie's winemaker with us, Heidi Breitenhagen. Heidi, I was looking at your bio and I was just blown away because I saw that you have 300 scores above 90 points. That is like, I mean, that sounds like a lifetime achievement, but you're clearly quite young, so you're not ready to retire. So you've got, I think, a lot of great scores ahead of you. And we have 2 of your wines here. And I'd just love to invite you to tell us a little bit about MacRostie and about the wines that we're about to taste. And then we can taste them and get familiar with them before we get into the cheeses.
Yeah, thank you for having me today. What a pleasure. I can honestly say I've been enjoying a lot of wine and cheese throughout the summer and always, and it's kind of a fun passion of mine. So just very excited to be here today. As Janet mentioned, my name is Heidi Breitenhagen, and I'm the winemaker for MacRostie Winery. MacRostie Winery has been making wines for going on 4 decades, and I'm the 3rd winemaker in its history. And yeah, so that means that Steve MacRostie founded it, and that's where the name comes from. MacRostie specializes in making Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, so we have one of each for you today. And everything we make is cool climate, and it's really what Chardonnay and Pinot Noir as varietals do best, you know, again, in my opinion. Cool climate Chardonnay and Pinot Noir really creates a wine that is balanced, acid driven, really fruit forward, very aromatic. And I think that's what really makes a wine pair well with food. So when we're tasting today with these different cheeses, I think you'll find that, you know, both the wines, Chardonnay and Pinot Noir, can be quite versatile and go well with lots of different types of food. And I think the different cheeses will bring out different aromatics and flavors and textures in the wines as we're tasting through them. So the picture that I have behind me is actually not one of the wines we're tasting today, but it is Wildcat Mountain, which is one of Steve's, he owns this vineyard, and it's a great representation of a cool climate vineyard. So the MacRostie is based in Sonoma County, and all the wines we make are from the Sonoma Coast area, and that they are all cool climate vineyards because of the proximity to the Pacific Ocean. So there are sites that are cool because of the wind, which is like Wildcat Mountain. There's also a fog influence that comes and layers in along the Russian River Valley. And we'll be tasting a Russian River Valley Pinot Noir there. And then there's also just kind of a good deal of vineyards that are so close to the ocean that just the cool nature of the Pacific Ocean makes them cool climate vineyards. The Chardonnay we're tasting is from the San Giacomo family, and they are actually near and dear to my heart because the first vintage of MacRostie Chardonnay ever made in 1987 was from San Giacomo family fruit. So it's a tradition that was started way before my time, but I'm proud to get to carry it on. And it is from Carneros growing region. So it's a bit more valley floor. There's definitely that wind influence and really nice cooling effects. The backbone of this wine tends to be very lemon citrus driven, really clean, again, bright acid, really nice citrus, mellow mouthfeel, really soft texture. And we use a lot of San Giacomo fruit to also go into a blend we make that's our Sonoma Coast Chardonnay. And I like to think of this not only as a foundation of MacRostie Winery, but also a great just like foundation of a lot of the Chardonnays that we produce. The Pinot Noir, as I mentioned, is Russian River Valley, and it's kind of a fun to incorporate this wine into the MacRostie story as well. So in 2013, we purchased a piece of property in the Russian River Valley, just outside of the town of Healdsburg. And we now own our own estate vineyard, which is Russian River Valley Pinot Noir. A good deal of that goes into this wine, and it's where our tasting room is. And it's sort of our new home. So we really, part of the history of MacRostie and something that I love and, have been a big part of is a constant experimentation and evolution of the winemaking process, and constantly looking for new vineyards, all cool climate, and traveling, starting in Carneros where Steve really built the brand, and then traveling north along the Russian River Valley, searching for those cool climate vineyards and influences. So kind of the next generation, the new home of MacRostie is really Russian River Valley. And it just exudes this, more dark fruit. There's kind of a really nice black tea kind of herbal nature to it, really soft tannin, lengthy finish, and always just a beautiful dark color. So I hope these two wines can really show you the MacRostie history and what our winemaking style is all about. And I think they're going to pair lovely with all of these cheeses. So I'm really excited to get started.
I'll bet everybody else is too. I just have to say one thing, and that is for anybody who comes to California, who lives in California, or who has the opportunity, do go visit MacRostie at their winery. It is one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. It is just a beautiful, beautiful place. The building, plus you can't even get 2 feet from your car before they greet you with a glass of wine, or at least that's how it was pre-pandemic. I'm not sure about now if you're still doing that, but it'll happen again. It's all about hospitality there. Anyway, I just wanted one thing I neglected to mention before is that Janet and I hope that you will post anything you want to post on, well, not anything, but about Cheese O'Clock and or MacRostie on your social media handles. And you can tag all of us. You can tag Janet at Janet Fletcher NV, which stands for Napa Valley. I'm Cheese Lady with a Z, and Central Coast Creamery and MacRostie Winery. So please be sure to do that. But then we also, I neglected to say this, Janet, if I'm stepping on you here, I apologize. But I didn't say so before, that we wanted to encourage everybody to do a selfie before we really dig in. I know all of you are like, what do you mean before? We've already got, half of our cheese is decimated. But for those of you who have held back, what we'd like for you to do is take your phone and put it on selfie mode, and then, excuse me, take a picture. Well, mine's not working at all. Anyway, well, never mind. But anyway, the idea is take a selfie and with you and your cheese and the screen, and let us know what it looks like. And hashtag cheese o'clock, of course.
So are we ready to say 1, 2, 3, cheese?
Say cheese, everybody. Okay. And I'm just going to briefly tell everybody that the guy that's on the screen there, named Reggie Jones, he's an important part of this, but we're not going to get to Reggie yet. But I just wanted you to know that he's our guest cheesemaker. So we'll get to that in a minute.
He's the guy with all the cheese behind him. Okay.
Yeah. Good
All right,
point.
let's get started tasting. I'm hungry. My husband made a grilled cheese sandwich for lunch today, and I'm still smelling it. It smells so good. I've just been craving cheese all afternoon. So here we go. We're going to get started. We're going to taste from lightest to strongest, which usually means youngest to oldest, roughly. And our first cheese is our youngest by a long shot. It's Laura Chanel's Goat Brie. You're all familiar with cow's milk bries. This is a fairly unusual style to make a brie or a soft ripened, mold ripened cheese out of goat's milk. But Laura Chanel, of course, is a goat's milk producer. And I just had this trip down memory lane today because I was remembering Laura Chanel. She she's no longer involved in the company. She sold it a while back, but I was a cook at Chez Panisse, a lowly cook in 1980, 1981. And I have such a clear memory of Laura walking into that restaurant with her cheeses for the first time to have Alice taste them. And Laura was, a pioneer. She was the one who really the first in the US to make a commercial goat cheese that like the ones that were made in France. And Alice was so excited to have something from California. So we, immediately started using it in the kitchen. I made 1 million goat cheese salads with Laura Chanel goat cheese. And, while I was remembering this, so it also occurred to me that, so it was 1981. So next year is this company's 40th anniversary, which is pretty amazing. 40 years of great goat cheese. And while I was having this trip down memory lane, I remembered that I had a book that Laura wrote, and I got it out. It's called American Country Cheese. It's actually a cookbook. And I was looking at it, and I saw that she had handwritten a note. She signed it, and she put, and this is from 1989, to Janet, "May we see more and more fine American cheeses in the years to come." So look where we are. That was 31 years after she wrote that. We have her beautiful Laura Chanel beautiful goat cheese here, which is a blue ribbon winner. I love this little size. It's 5 ounces, so it's perfect for 4 if you've got other cheeses on your cheese board, or for 2 if you don't. It's got this penicillium rind that is what makes it ripen from the outside in, and what gives it the mushroom aromas. I think that's what I get out of this cheese when I taste it, is just that kind of agaricus mushroom, button mushroom smell. I see how pale it is, that it's really chalk white, which is always a signature of goat cheese because it doesn't have any carotene. The goat's milk doesn't, like cow milk. So I just get a very fresh smell. You don't get that strong goaty smell. You get just a bright mushroom smell. And let's taste it. I'm definitely going to eat this rind, and I hope you will too. Very creamy, very mild and delicate. This cheese is only about 2 weeks old when it leaves the creamery. And then you notice on your, if you still have your packaging, you can see on the bottom the date stamp, which is what they call the best buy date, or the date, you know, they really want you to eat it by, which in my case was December 2nd. And the folks at Laura Chanel told me that they think the cheese is best about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks before that. So that would be almost right now, or maybe next week. So this cheese is pretty close, at least the one I got is pretty close to what they consider to be perfectly ripe. And I would say that too. It's kind of squishy. It's not strong. It's not ammoniated. Just got that just delicacy, real delicacy. And it's just tasting great. I haven't tried it with the Chardonnay. Have you, Laura or Heidi?
No, not yet. Heidi, did you do so?
I did. I think it works really well with the Chardonnay. As you mentioned, it's such a like delicate cheese, and I think the acid with the wine plays really nice because there is kind of a touch of acid in the cheese that then kind of complements into that creamy finish. So I think, and I think the wine might almost pull out some kind of like fruity notes in the cheese that you might not normally think of, I guess.
I like the two textures together. I mean, the wine is a little more, it's refreshing with the sort of the unctuous cheese, but it's really nicely balanced at the same time. I wanted to say two things about this cheese. One is that you can pretty much tell this is a goat's milk cheese by virtue of the color of the paste, the inside of the cheese. It's a lot whiter than if this were a cow's milk brie. So that's one way you can tell. Also, I find this a lot more relative to a brie. I find it a lot more savory. Brie tends to be a little bit more buttery. This certainly has some notes of that, but not that much. And bries tend to be that cream thing tends to be a little bit sweeter almost. Again, this is savory. And so that makes a difference in just, well, everything really, but how it tastes and also how it goes with the wine. And then one other thing I wanted to say, I think a lot of people have the misconception, Janet, I'm sure you've discovered this too, that cheeses like this tend to be more fattening, have more calories. And if they will, if they have cream added to them, like a double cream or a triple cream, but you're not going to find, I only know of one goat's milk cheese that's cream enhanced. And I don't even know if they're still making it. And so, and so I just want everybody to know that this actually, there's a lot more water, if you will, in here. And so it's not all solids, and therefore it's not as caloric as some other cheeses that are all about solids, like Parmesan.
Well, yeah, in fact, my guess is it's probably 45% fat in the dry matter. So, you know, it's not, you know, if you take all the moisture out of a Parmigiano Reggiano, you're left with ounce per ounce, a more caloric cheese. But we don't talk about calories.
Well, no, but people always ask, and I'm just gonna call out that elephant in the room. Just
okay.
Leave it to me to be.
Honestly, I don't think about it because it's just so satisfying. You only want an ounce. How much cheese are you going to eat? You know, an ounce of each, a half an ounce of each, and it just doesn't amount to much of anything. So
Janet, I can hear everybody in the peanut gallery saying, you might eat an ounce. I'm not eating just an ounce,
okay.
But go ahead.
An ounce of each. I hope we'll also try this with the Pinot, because I really like bloomy rind cheeses with Pinot Noir. I find your Pinot to be to have, to me, a raspberry aroma that's very bright and fresh, and I think it's gonna be really nice with this delicate cheese. I find it, you know, on the spectrum of Pinot Noir, I find it a fairly delicate Pinot Noir. It's not a bruiser, so I think it really can match up in intensity with this cheese. Heidi, did you try it with the Pinot?
I did. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that kind of mushroom aroma on the cheese really works well with the Pinot. Mm-hmm. But again, I agree, like having that raspberry note, it's almost as if you're putting like a little jam or, you know, some sort of fruit paste with the cheese, but instead it's kind of like the wine layering onto it. So it's a really nice compliment.
Yeah.
Laura, should we move on? Can you? introduce us to our guest, our rock star cheesemaker.
Rockstar is right. Reggie Jones is the founder, owner, just chief everything of Central Coast Creamery, which is coincidentally on the Central Coast in Paso Robles. Not so coincidentally. Reggie, I'll just give a little bit of your family background and then go from there. So Reggie and his wife met way back when, high school, I think, in Modesto, where they raised their 3 daughters, moved to Paso Robles, and decided to make cheese because that Reggie was in the cheese world, but not as a maker. But I guess, was it always something you wanted to do?
Yeah, it was, for sure. I started in a cheese factory right out of college. So like, I don't want to say this is my 31st year making cheese, but it is.
Well, you were an infant when you started, so it's all right.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Well, so of course we want to hear all about you, your cheese, and the operation. But we have a video, I think, that can give us a sense of that.
Awesome.
So I don't know who's in charge of the video, but there you go.
May not look like it at first, but inside this nondescript warehouse in Paso Robles, there is a cheese oasis just waiting to be discovered. It's all the brainchild of Reggie Jones. He started his Central Coast Creamery in 2007 with the hopes of using his knowledge of cheese making to turn this wine country into wine and cheese country.
I started making cheese in 1991, right out of college. And it was something I always wanted to do. I had worked in a lot of large facilities. Just saw that you either had to be very small and artisanal and get high premiums for your cheese that you're making, or you had to be very large and just nothing in between was working.
What is working here is all the different cheeses Reggie is molding. They're making 180,000 pounds of cheese a year here, including his award-winning Goat Gouda, which was one of 3 winners recently at the American Cheese Society competition.
I mean, seriously, what does that feel like? Because that's like I described to someone the Oscars of cheese. I mean, that's huge.
We got 1 in the top 16 at the World Cheese Championship once, and that was great. To get 3 in the top 20 is it's unheard of and obviously unexpected. So we've got a lot of people that have called and congratulated us, and a lot of friends in the cheese industry that I've known for a lot of years are really happy for us.
And what were those 3?
So those 3 were goat cheddar, which is over here.
Okay.
And Seascape, which is a mix of goat and cow milk.
Oh,
so that's the one with the brown rind that you'll see.
Got it.
And then Eureka, which is a play on the California state motto, that's spelled E-W-E, and that is a sheep milk cheddar.
Part of what makes Reggie's cheeses so good is the fact that they come from different milk sources. Local goat, cow, and sheep milk are all used for the cheeses, including one that he's the only cheesemaker in California doing right now.
So we have 500 gallons of cow milk here. We're making Holy Cow creamy Swiss cheese. We're about in the middle of the process. We brought in 500 gallons of milk. We've heated it to 145 degrees, held it for 30 minutes, so it's fully pasteurized.
Or why aren't there more people making Swiss cheese?
The texture, the acidity, the moisture, the fat level, everything has to be exactly right. Otherwise, you'll end up with what they call blind cheese, blind Swiss. It has no eyes. The holes we call eyes. So
I get it.
From there, the goal in cheesemaking is to concentrate the solids enough to make cheese. So Reggie and his team work at separating the curds and the whey. For every 10 pounds of milk, you get 1 pound of cheese and 9 pounds of whey. And that's all given to a local farmer for their livestock to feed on. The cheese curds are cut into squares and pressed into molds where they'll eventually be flipped, and then we'll spend the night there before getting bathed in a salty brine for the next 48 hours.
So we're brining some cheese here, huh?
yeah, so these are our brine tanks. So this is where the cheese will actually take up the salt. The other purpose is that it will float in here, and then that'll maintain the shape. So they stay in here for 24 hours and then get flipped over, and then another 24 hours, so a total of 48 hours. And then they'll come out. At that point, it'll form a nice rind on the outside of the cheese, and that will allow it to go onto the boards without flattening out like a pancake.
From here, the cheese will go into the aging room where it will be flipped every so often to ensure the rind develops correctly. After aging, it's cut and labeled and sent to a variety of retailers here in California and across the country to enjoy.
Some of the best cheese in the world is being made right here, and we just want people to recognize that we're here and that we're doing a great job.
All right. And you are. So, Reggie, tell us a couple of things. First of all, well, the cheese we have today is called Unique, EWE, which refers to the female sheep. But you did not start out making that in Paso Robles, am I right?
No, actually, this, our logo had 3 C's on it, which have a goat, cow, and a sheep head in the middle of the C. So it was always our intention to make a sheep milk cheese. But we just could not get enough sheep milk to make a product that we could have year round. So we originally started making this product in actually in the Netherlands. We actually bought sheep milk in France and trucked it to the Netherlands and made it there. And then we would bring it a whole container at a time here to sell. And then that changed 3 years ago when a sheep milk producer started very close to us, about 75 miles away. And he had enough sheep milk, and so we converted the make over to our facility in Paso Robles.
That's awesome. So now everything you get is pretty local, is it not? All the milk that you get?
Yeah, all the milk we get is local. All of the cow milk actually we purchase from Cow Poly Dairy now, which is just 20 miles down the road. It's the only cow dairy in the county. The goat milk comes from Hanford, which is about 80 miles away, and the sheep milk around the same place.
Now, can people visit you or no?
They can if they call. We do have people stopping by all the time. We are in the middle of a big wine region, and so people are looking for other things to do besides tasting wine. So they will look us up and bang on the door and come in. So it happens every single day. We're not really set up to have people here, but we do have a little cheese case, so we'll sell them cheese if they show up. Eventually, we will turn the front of our operation into a store. So eventually.
Yeah, sounds like there might be a business there. Besides which, what goes better with all that wine and Paso Robles than cheese? And then we will get to the Unique in 1 second. I just wanted to point out, I guess, that you have a daughter who is a cheesemaker, and talking about some of that sheep's milk goes to her operation. Am I right?
That's correct. She started her business almost 2 years ago now. Really was an opportunity for her to learn about the family business and what we do, to spend more time with me down at the cheese plant. And she was looking for ways to give back to the community. And this was a way that I started her own label that she could produce cheese, sell the cheese, and actually she gives 5% of the total sales to an organization called Amp Surf, which is a charity that teaches amputees and veterans how to surf to gain more confidence in their abilities.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. And how old is she now?
She's 16 now.
Yeah, ripe old age of 16. Janet,
Yeah.
I featured one of her cheeses. Her creamery is called, or her operation is called Shooting Star Creamery. And we featured one of her cheeses in our last round of Cheese O'Clock. And it was really popular. And it actually did it win 3rd runner-up in the American Cheese Society last year? Am I right?
It did, yeah, it did.
Okay, well, enough talk about this. Let's talk about your cheese. Okay, so tell us about Unique itself, other than we now know the milk source, but how do you make it briefly, and how long is this aged and all of that?
Sure. The Unique is actually a sheep milk Gouda. The idea was to all of the sheep milk Goudas that you see for sale in the United States are really imported products, and so we were looking to make a domestic sheep milk Gouda. And so when we converted that here, of course, this is the first domestic sheep milk Gouda that you would find. It is made like a Gouda, so it's a washed curd variety. So where we actually will cook the curds with hot water, diluting the lactose content and the enzymes. And then it is put on the boards and aged for 6 months. So like 6 months, turned twice a week, just to develop that flavor profile we're looking for.
Which
You
is
too.
what?
The one thing about sheep milk is it's generally pretty sweet, and so one of the things that we try to do is like tone down that sweetness of that milk to try to get more the savory qualities to come through. This particular piece is a little bit toothy. It gets that way after 6 months, so the texture is not as creamy as most of our cheeses are.
I don't know what toothy. What do you mean by toothy?
Toothy is like almost like so when you bite it, it kind of breaks instead of like just squishing.
Ah, okay.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. We learned a new word, Janet.
It wasn't in my vocabulary, but
Yeah,
I like that you didn't get rid of all the sweetness, because to me this cheese really is sweet. It's got that beautiful caramel finish that just makes you want to have another bite, kind of balanced with salt. It
just has a lot of salted caramel, some savory flavors, high umami, and there's a little bit slight green onion that I pick up in this actual batch. Yeah, no, it's a fairly nice piece of cheese. This is not my favorite cheese of ours. Like this is one of my least favorite actually, but it's a great piece of cheese. A lot of people really love it.
Oh, what do you know? So no, what is your favorite cheese of yours?
My favorite cheese, I think right now it changes from time to time. Depends on what the ages of the cheese are, what seasons they're in. I think right now my favorite is Seascape.
Okay.
Dreamweaver is right up there for me, I have to say.
Yeah, Dreamweaver right now is really good. So like whatever's out in the marketplace right now is like unbelievable.
Yeah.
Dreamweaver.
Well, what did you think with the wine, Laura? Did you try it with have you tried it with wines yet?
No,
I thought it was great with the Chardonnay. Really nice. And I'm seeing Heidi nod as well. Heidi, what did you think about it? Did you have a preference between the white or the red?
I actually liked the Pinot, and then you guys started talking about like the caramel notes in the cheese, and I thought that's kind of what came out in the wine. Like I started getting a little bit more of the toastiness in the oak and kind of these hints of caramel. So I picked Pinot for this one.
I'm sticking by the Chard.
Fair enough.
Are you tasting the wines with us?
I am.
And what's your opinion?
The Pinot is really good with this. This is a very wine-friendly cheese. We have a lot of wineries that use this in a lot of different varietals.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, and even, I think moving away from MacRostie for a second, I mean, like sherries, cheeses, wines that have a little bit of a nutty note can be really nice with these, with this Gouda style. It's as this cheese ages, does it get more crumbly, like a Gouda, a Dutch Gouda? Is it get crystals and crumbly?
Yeah, it will. This one starts getting crystals around 8 months. And the texture continues to tighten and tighten. You're losing more moisture. You're breaking down the proteins. You're getting more that proteolysis that's contributing more to that strong flavor profile that you're going to get out of a more aged Gouda.
So are you taking some of your wheels are you taking them out to a year or?
We don't. We don't really have the space in our ripening rooms to do that at this point in time, but hopefully that's going to change soon.
Reggie, is this a good cheese for melting? Would you say some people want to know that?
This is a fairly good cheese for melting. It's not our best melting cheese, but it does melt very well. A lot of people use this like in place of like a raclette or something like that. So it does melt.
Wow.
Yeah, and right now with all the new crop nuts coming on, the new crop walnuts and almonds, it's a really great cheese to have with I think dried fruit or persimmons, dates, and nuts. To me, that's a dessert. You put this cheese out with nuts and dried fruit, and you got your dessert plate already. You don't have to get any fancier than that.
For sure.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. Well, I guess we better move on. Actually, I'm sure people want to know what Seascape is since you said it's your favorite. It's a mixed milk cheese, right? That's
a mixed milk goat and cow 50-50 blend. It's aged only about 60 days, but it has this, really nice like buttermilk flavor that comes through, and then you have that nice layering effect of the the lactic fresh flavors up front from the cow milk, and then you get that kind of some of that little bit of gaminess from the goat milk at the end.
So we're going to move on to another mixed milk chease. Mixed milk seems to be kind of a trend in the US. It's done a lot in Europe, especially in Italy, where they have cows and sheep and goats all mixed up. They just have mixed flocks, so they make mixed milk cheese. And in this country, I think creameries have started to do it in part because sheep milk is so hard to come by, and supplies are not very reliable, and it's expensive. So you can, by mixing the sheep milk with cow or goat, you can make a more affordable cheese. What we're about to have is Beecher's Flag Sheep. Don't get confused, because there's also Beecher's Flag Ship, which is 100% cow milk. Flag Sheep is a third or 35% sheep's milk. And this is not only a blue ribbon winner, this won Best of Show in 2012. So, top cheese out of maybe at the time 1,500 other cheeses. So it's got, you can see it's got a natural rind, a cheesecloth wrap. So it's made like a traditional cheddar, but with the mixed milk. And I know Brian from Beecher's is on the call. So if you have specific questions, Brian can probably answer them better than I can. We asked Brian to estimate how old this cheese was. And he's just guessing because he doesn't know exactly which wheel we got, but he thought it might be about 18 to 20 months old. So it's always a minimum of 16 months. And so we may have an extra age one, which just means it's going to be more concentrated. It's going to have more of that sweet salt balance that I love in cheddar. Now this cheddar it's classic in the sense that it's aged with air, with the cheesecloth wrap, so it's not waxed, or aged in a bag. But it's not totally classic, because they mix the milk, sheep and cow, but also they use a culture in here that you wouldn't use if you're making cheddar in England. They use a Alpine type cheddar, culture, like if you were making a Comté or a Gouda. They add that to the typical cheddar cultures to give it more nuttiness, a little more sweetness. So as you taste it, think if you can pick up that kind of Alpine character, just a little more nuttiness than you're accustomed to in a cheddar. And it's great breaking up into that wonderful crumbly texture that we expect with cheddar. I get, lots of nuts, and you can smell that just characteristic cheddar. You can smell the tang. Fruity, it's got a fruity, almost a pineapple smell.
I love it. I wish that we had like a 5 to 8 year old Chardonnay to taste with it. I think that would just, that like nuttiness.
A little more oxidation, a little more nuttiness in the wine.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a beautiful cheese too.
Janet, do you know the ratio? Is it about 30% sheep's milk?
It's 35%. It's 35% sheep milk, and this is a cheese that just fills your mouth. It's got a lot of length, and I know, Heidi, this is something winemakers always talk about. Wine tasters talk about that long finish. This cheese has a long finish. It just, minutes after you swallow, you're still tasting it. But I find it, it's beautifully balanced. It's a cheddar for people who don't like super sharp cheddars. It's very approachable, very mellow.
And it does have that tang. I also find it's got a lot of butter in it. And it is maybe not coincidentally or coincidentally, isn't it? It's rubbed with butter, isn't it? Isn't on the outside?
I'm going to have to answer that. I don't know. I mean, that's a classic cheddar technique. You rub you shape these cheeses in a mold that's lined with cheesecloth. Take them out, they're still lined with cheesecloth, and then you rub the outside with lard, typically in England. Here, I think a lot of cheesemakers try to stay away from these ingredients that would make it not suitable for vegetarians, because there's so many vegetarians in this country. So they'll use, I wouldn't be surprised if they used butter instead of lard on the outside. And the purpose of that is to seal it off a bit. It's not to make it taste buttery. It's to seal the outside, help a rind to form, and not, you want it to
start my video.
Be exposed to air, but not lose moisture too fast. So that's what the cheesecloth does in this fat coating.
So Heidi, since we did have a 8-year-old Chardonnay, the San Giacomo is a little younger than that. Between this and the Pinot, do you have a preference?
I think I still like it with the Chardonnay.
Oh, do you?
I think they both, this is that question. It's hard picking like one of your children as a preference, but I think the Pinot tastes great too.
And I actually added Brian since he's sitting here. I just added him so he could say hi to everybody. Hi, Brian.
Brian, thanks for joining us. And can you answer this question about whether what's on the outside? Is there butter on the outside? Or
there is, yeah. I just took my beautiful setup down for my own virtual tasting just now. So now I'm looking at my computer. So hopefully it'll come in pretty well. I'm here in the kitchen. Yes, it is rubbed with butter. We don't use lard. It's we wrap it in cheesecloth, rub it with butter, and allow it to age for about 16 months before it leaves the shelf, as Janet was mentioning earlier. There was some talk between Laura and Janet about the percentage. I've been with Beechers for 8 years, and some of the cheesemakers will say it's a 70 to 30% ratio. I've come to about a 65-35 as I talk to Liz, our director of cheesemaking now. So it really just depends on batch to batch. That's why you'll notice some variances with, the question was, what batch do you have for my gourmet in your hands? And I was guessing because of our quarantine, we had some of our cheeses that were sitting in the shelves for quite a while. And I have the same cheese that you probably have now, and it tastes and everything I can see is about 18 months. So, and I can tell because it's not super dry on the outside. Sorry, I'm holding my computer too. But yeah, it's rubbed with butter.
Hey, Brian, do you know if where Flagship is available in addition to iGourmet?
Oh, that's a little bit tough. I can find out and put it in the chat. I know that typically I say Whole Foods, PCC, QFC, Central Market, Thriftway, Safeway. I say that as a general speak. That's here on the West Coast. I have heard reports of it being at New Seasons here and there, and sometimes some of your usual suspects, Kroger brands, but typically it's hit or miss depending on if the cheesemonger is able to carry it based on what's working for them. So it's really just kind of a special thing that'll come around every once in a while.
Okay.
it is irresistible. It's just tasting great.
Thank you so much.
Whatever age it is, it's the perfect age.
I agree.
Yeah.
I find that sometimes at the counter, we have customers that will like it when it's way older. I actually like it right when it's about 18 months. It's just a little past it's our selling point for it, but it's so good. It's still creamy, but still has that nice aged property to it as well.
I'd love to hear what Reggie has to say about it. We have a cheesemaker on the call.
Well, I don't know.
I'm here.
What's your impression as a cheesemaker? What are you picking up in this cheese?
Yeah, no, it's a really nice cheese. Typical with cheddar. I mean, you're going to get a lot of acidity and some slight bitterness, and that sourness is typical of a cheddar. The texture is spot on, so it's like really great. The flavor is, you can tell it's not like a typical West Coast cheddar where it's like it's got Helvetics in it and it's really sweet. It's it's really the like bare bones, like well-made cheddar.
I don't think we mentioned yet that this cheese is a city cheese. This cheese is made in Seattle at Pike Place, at the creamery across from Pike Place Market. So when things change and we can go traveling again, go to Pike Place Market, go across the street and visit Beechers, and there's a viewing window. You can see the cheese being made, and then it's also aged in Seattle. They have aging facilities there. So this is not something made in the in the rolling hills of Eastern Washington. It's made in the city, and the Beecher is the family name of the owner, Kurt Dameyer, who's just this brilliant entrepreneur who got the idea to start this creamery in a city. And Beecher's also has a facility in New York Brian, you make cheese on Broadway in New York, don't you? Or is it Broadway?
We do. We just opened up too. And well, we closed almost everything, as many people did when quarantine started in March. About a month later, we reopened Pike. And then 2 months after that, a few months ago now, we reopened cheese making in New York. And we just reopened the cafe and the cellar, which is the restaurant attached to the creamery in New York on 20th and Broadway as well. So you can see cheese being made right there, right now. If you live there, hopefully we'll be able to sample and do all the things we've done in the past before soon. I just want to say, Reggie, too, I haven't talked to you in a while. But it's right behind Flagship in our cheese case. I love, love, love your cheeses. I always have. I'm a big fan. I love it so much. And I'm glad that we get to show you off because our cheese case at Pike Place Market, our theme is Northwest and West Coast cheeses. So we're well represented there.
Yeah, I've been there several times and we're always well represented in the case and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, all the more reason to go to Seattle.
That's right.
So we have a question that I think, since we have both of you, you're both well equipped to answer this question, I think, which is how to store the cheeses. We have 4 different styles, well, really kind of 3 different styles of cheese today. And Brian, as a cheesemonger, you're wrapping cheese as much as you're selling it, I imagine. And you, Reggie, well, you're cutting a lot of cheese these days and probably storing it too. So what's your expert advice, each of you?
Go ahead, Brian.
All right. Typically, I like that if you have cheese paper, that's great. Cheese paper is a double-lined paper that the inside is parchment and the outside is a perforated cellophane. And the idea is when you wrap your piece of cheese in it, it allows the cheese to breathe but doesn't let it dry out. And then typically, I'll take that cheese and put it in my vegetable crisper in my refrigerator to keep it away from the fans and out of the air, but it still allows it to breathe. So that's my typical go-to with most cheeses.
Okay.
Yeah, most people don't have cheese paper. You know, it's like it kills you sometimes to see some cheese the way it's being stored because it really, degrades the cheese quality over time. But a lot of people wrap, like especially the Bloomy Ryans are wrapping those in just saran wrap. That's, I think, okay with that kind of cheese. A lot of cheeses it's not really great for. I mean, you'll get that surface mold to grow pretty quickly under those conditions because that moisture stays on the surface of the cheese.
Wait a minute, I'm surprised. You think plastic wrap is okay for a Bloomy Rind?
I do, yeah.
Wow.
If here's what I would say. If you're going to do that, just put the plastic up against the cut face. Don't put it on the mold surface. You really want to allow that cheese to continue to.
Well, the Laura Chanel Brie comes plastic wrapped.
Well, that's just the requirement of retail these days.
So
an evil necessity. Everybody's got wax paper. I often use wax paper and just loosely wrap something, a cut cheese, and then put it inside a lidded container like a Tupperware, and it stores great that way. I mean,
no, go ahead.
There are some commercial products out there like Cheese Vault and things like that are out there that you can use. I've seen people.
You don't need it. You really don't need it. Use what you have, and I think actually wax paper and a sealed container is going to do you just fine. That
works great. That works great. I also bring home just sandwich paper. Of course, I'm getting it from the store. What we wrap it's essentially wax paper, and I'll put it in. I have these glass Tupperware type things, so it creates almost like a biodome for the cheese to create. If it does grow mold, it's only the molds typically that are from the cheese itself. And then I can just trim that mold off, continue to eat my cheese. Definitely don't throw it away. If it tastes good, it's still good.
Yeah, I think the most important point is just don't buy too much. Get in the habit of shopping more often and buying less.
Yeah.
Buy less. Buy what you eat over the next few days and then go back and buy more.
I just have to tell you that Madeline from Laura Chanel says they do not plastic wrap their cheeses. So we all stand corrected. I tried to say that's not exactly, well, it's not the kind of plastic wrap we have at home. What's on the outside it's a different, probably a breathable kind or something.
Stores are going to do that. They're going to take it and cut it in half and wrap it
are.
in plastic, and it's, you just,
Mhm.
I try
Yeah.
not to buy from stores that do that, but
I think the size is good. Like this small size is good because you're going to eat it really fast. So maybe you're not even going to need to wrap it.
Or just put it back into that same container. Okay,
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
I think we need to move on to cheese number 4, which Brian, you're probably familiar with. I know you are actually. So this is a cheese called Caveman Blue from Rogue Creamery.
Oh, yes.
I know, I'm with you on that one. So Rogue Creamery has kind of an interesting history. It actually began in 1933 by two men, two sort of, I don't know, stars, if you will, of California cheese history, Tom Vella and Kelso Viviani. Tom Vella started Vella Cheese Company, and Viviani started Sonoma Cheese Factory, both of which remain to this day. They formed a partnership, and then in the 1950s, Viviani got out, Tom Vella continued, decided, and it was a cheddar factory, and they actually serviced the war effort for 4 years, and 1 million pounds a year, by the way. So then Tom Vella wanted to explore his love of blue cheese. So in addition to cheddar, he learned how to make blue cheese by going over to France, actually, and learning about Roquefort, and created the first cheese that he made in blue cheese, which is called Oregon Blue, which is still made. Anyway, fast forward again, his son, Ig Vella, who all of us in the cheese community knew and loved, took over in 1998 and made the cheese for about 10 years and just decided that he couldn't do it any longer. It was too much to travel where he lived in Sonoma up to Oregon, back and forth. A fortuitous encounter with a guy named David Gremmels, who was about to open a wine bar and was looking for cheese to have there, ultimately led to David buying the Rogue Creamery operation, which wasn't quite called Rogue Creamery. It was Rogue Valley Cheese Company, I think, and he named it Rogue Creamery. Okay, so now here we are in caveman country, which was not his first cheese. But Caveman Blue is one of 2 cheeses that Rogue Creamery makes that has a natural rind. The rest, like a Roquefort, don't have any rind. And the other cheese they have is called Omega Tolman, I think, as opposed to Alpha Tolman. And so, which is a cheese made in Vermont. So, so this cheese, Caveman, is only aged about 2 months, but that's all it takes. And that's the one we have today that is aged, pardon me, about that long. It is, all Rogue Creamery cheeses are certified organic, and they get their milk from 2 different sources. One is their own dairy, and the other is a dairy called Hale Dairy. And they have a combination of brown Swiss cows and Holsteins. So Holsteins are the black and white cows that you see everywhere. And brown Swiss are pretty unusual, and they have a much richer milk. And so by combining those 2 milk sources, they don't have to standardize their milk, meaning that lots of large operations will make their milk so that it's the same every time, and that's called standardization. This, they don't have to. With the combination of milk that they have, they come up with the right protein and fat content that they're looking for each and every time. And so that's all of their cheeses. And then, and Caveman is named for, there are lots of caves in the Crater Lake area, which is kind of near where they are. And there's a lot of lore around the caveman, occasional sightings of Bigfoot, things like that. And so they have this logo that used to be part of another operation. Actually, it's a caveman, and so these are aged not in those caves any longer, but it's kind of a nod to the cave history in that area. All right, so let's taste it, which I've not done.
whoa, it is amazing. It's so buttery and so mellow. I think really this is a cheese for both connoisseurs of blue cheese and people who think they don't like blue cheese, because it's just like butter. That texture is beautiful. It's not pungent. They managed to get a lot of character in this cheese without it being pungent, biting, peppery. But it's a big mouthful. I find it I get bacon notes and that fudgy texture, little buttermilk, but more sort of a meaty bacon note. And I can't leave it alone. And I normally, with cheeses like this, I find them hard to pair with dry wine, but this is so mellow I think it can work. And Heidi, how did you find that it went with the wines?
Yeah, I think there's like a very unique, almost smokiness is what I thought of. And I thought it looked really nice with the Pinot Noir. Blue cheese is like one of my all-time favorite cheeses. And you're right, it's really like soft and not too, pungent, I guess is the right word. So
yeah, it's super, it's a mouthful, but not in a pungent way, to reuse that word 100 times. It's also a little bit mushroomy, I get. And also, so I don't know about everybody else, but when I received mine, there was a lot of just moisture inside the packaging.
Yeah.
So that's very typical for blue cheeses. It's just the whey seeping out. For anybody else for whom this was an issue or a concern. And all you do is you just blot it away, for those of you that did find that, and you're good to go. So there's nothing wrong with the cheese. It's just what happens. It's natural seepage in the cheese. And also you might find that you get little crystals. Is it? I don't know. I got some kind of faint ones. And in certain blue cheeses, you will get calcium phosphate. It's basically minerals. And they're known as brushites and bruschiti in Italian. No, I'm kidding. And anyway, and so I got a little bit of that in one of my little bites, and so I'm assuming that that's what that is. But there is a little bit of a difference in flavor toward the center than there is toward the rind. Again, being a natural rind cheese, it's going to take on, I think, layers of flavors depending where you are in the cheese, and that's it's kind of fun because you don't find that you don't find a lot of flavor variation with blue cheeses, but with this, it's not a ton, but just a little bit. Reggie, you're on mute, but if you unmute, I'd love your opinion.
This is a beautiful blue cheese for sure. I just like it because it's like a lot of blue cheeses are really acidic, and this one is not that way, and it allows that flavor profile of the actually blue cheese to come through. The Penicillium Row 40. And you can tell that this is like a lot of pasture raised cows or pasture fed cows by the color of the paste. It's just a beautiful yellow. Really great cheese. I haven't had this one in a long time, but probably been a couple of years, but this is a really nice piece of cheese.
Laura said something that, excuse me, sorry, that you said something that brought something to mind, which is that, it's a different experience, whether you're having it like from the center or from near the rind. So it's really important, if you're the host and you're cutting cheese for people, to make sure that everybody gets a roughly similar piece, that everybody gets a little bit of the center and a little bit of the rind. So look at that piece that you bought and cut it in a way that if you're cutting it down for people, cut it in a way that everybody gets a little bit of the center and a little bit of the rind.
Right. And what I was going to say two things, actually. One is, Reggie, you mentioned the Penicillium roqueforti. Well, in addition to that, there are other yeasts and bacteria that inform the ultimate flavor of this cheese because it's this natural rind cheese. So I think I know that impacts everything, really. The other thing I was going to say is that, Heidi, you were talking about that you love blue cheese, but my guess is that most of your wines you maybe don't like with most of the blue cheeses, because dry table wines tend not to go with blue cheese. And I don't know why this one does, except that for all the reasons we're talking about, the mushroominess, the smokiness, the mellowness, all of that. I mean, because I always shy away from, I always tell people, I'm not a big fan even of red wine and blue cheese, but all bets are off with this cheese and your wine.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think sometimes blue cheese just has so much character and like a lasting kind of taste that it can almost overpower a wine, especially a Pinot Noir or a Chardonnay that are very nuanced flavors. So, but yeah, this one kind of just nails it. It's a little more subtle and works well. So
I didn't like it with the Chardonnay too much, I have to say. I felt like it brought out kind of funky notes in the Chardonnay, but I'm all for that Pinot.
Some questions I can't see them, but yeah. I see like we have some questions. Do we want to go to some questions from our?
We've sort of been answering them, but So somebody said, blue toasted cracker and honey on a cheese board. Yes. Is that a question? Yes. That works. Works very well. Ammonia notes on the brie. Oh, well, I didn't get that. Janet, did you or Reggie?
No, I actually didn't. But that's the natural process. As these rinds break down, as protein breaks down, ammonia is one of the byproducts. And if you've ever been like in a meat locker and smelled aged beef, you're going to get an ammonia smell. And that is what that's what that is from. It's from protein breakdown. And maybe Reggie can speak to that as well. But I'm not picking it up myself.
Actually, I do. If I pick it up, I definitely get it. Huh. Yeah. So Reggie, how can you enlighten us on that? I'm getting it when I pick up the whole cheese.
Yeah. Well, I didn't get that with this piece. A lot of times, right when you open it, if you smell it right when you open it, you're going to get a high amount of that ammonia smell. But if it's sitting out for a little bit, that dissipates for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, the part I'm spelling it is the part that's on against my cheese board. The top of it, no. So that proves your point.
Oh yeah, I smell that too on the bottom.
Yeah.
I love the texture on Caveman Blue. It's so great. The texture just adds another layer beyond all the pairings all the adjectives that you described.
Yeah, it's true. You want to, because you can spread it. You kind of want to, well, I kind of want to actually spread it everywhere, but it's also, I keep looking at it like it's going to tell me what I want to say. But also but it obviously it holds its own. I could see putting this on, if I wanted a sweet and savory kind of combination, I could see putting this on a piece of dried fruit, like a fig or a date or something like that. And you just couldn't go wrong, I don't think, with something like that.
Yeah, somebody mentioned honey and nuts, and one of the simplest desserts I make when people come, in the old days when people came for dinner, we would have, blue cheese, and I'll take honey and just warm it until it's, it flows, and then fold in a lot of toasted nuts, toasted almonds, toasted walnuts, toasted hazelnuts, whatever I've got. And that's just a wonderful accompaniment for blue cheese. And, it took you 5 minutes to make dessert.
So I have one wine question, Heidi. Maybe I missed it, but with your Chardonnay, so a lot of people, when they think of California Chardonnay, they think oak and they think butter. And oak is not our friend with cheese. Cheese tends to, especially creamy cheeses, tend to bring the oak out in a wine. I'm not getting a lot of oak with this wine. And so what is the oak treatment on the San Giacomo? It seems very balanced to me.
Yeah, that is a signature of my winemaking style. So I do use traditional methods. Most of the Chardonnays are 100% malolactic fermentation. A lot of our Chardonnay is even 100% barrel fermented. But I usually only use around 15 to 20% new French oak. And I'm also very particular about the coopers I work with. So there are many different forests, toasting styles, and different things like that for the barrel treatments. And I'm really looking for the mouthfeel, texture, and sweetness that an oak barrel can give to the mid palate of a wine. And I'm not really looking for aromatic, because I think that's what the grapes are for. So the grapes and the fermentation. It is a very subtle oak treatment for sure.
Okay.
So I know we need to wrap it up. We've used up our hour. Somehow it just flew by. And I just want to thank Reggie and Brian and Heidi for joining us, and MacRostie for supporting us. And Laura and I will look forward to seeing you back on next Thursday, November 19th for Vermont Masterclass. And order your cheeses now for our class in December, which is 4 states, 5 stars. Get your cheese and wine ordered, okay? And we'll see you back here for the next Cheese O'Clock.
And happy birthday, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us. And thanks to the few folks in New Jersey. I know it's late out there, so thanks for joining us from all over the country. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Reggie. Thanks, Heidi. Thanks so much. Thanks, MacRostie. Appreciate
Good
it.
night, everybody.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
Cheers.